guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So, this is going to be the entire video of the before and after of the Pevia Edition 20 guitar amp little restore project. And as you can see, she's pretty grunged. It's going to definitely need some cleanup for sure, especially all that metal. And of course, the material on the outside is going to need to be cleaned up a lot. And this is the amp that I'm also going to modify for the power for 12 volt. It does have a 12 volt jack, but I got to modify with a different jack because I can't get the adapter thingy anymore. And of course, this is the new one. So this one's the one that's in, wow, mint shape. So yeah, before, and that's what it should look in the end, but we shall see. Yeah, pretty cool. And you can definitely tell the difference between these two just by all the grunge and crap, and oh, even the speaker grill cloth on this one here is really bad. This one's really super clean. So we're going to be giving that a bit of a cleanup as well somehow. Not sure how yet, but we'll figure that out. But anyways, don't go away. This is all instant for you guys. Okay, so for anybody wondering what the inside of some of these amps look like, in particular the Pevia Edition 20 amp, 1984 technology. Woohoo! One thing I did notice is that I've got my bass knob is kind of shifted on an angle. Looks like the plate got dented somehow. I don't know how anybody does that. But I'm going to be pulling the whole amp out anyway because I want to go through it and I want to resolder any connections that may be getting weak. Preventative maintenance, we'll call that. Anyways, this is the power adapter wire. So it's just grounded to the chassis, and then you're live for your positive here. What could be simpler, right? So I just have to make that hole a little tiny bit bigger for a 1/4 inch jack plug. And Jake's your uncle. And it is actually a special plug. I'll show you that in a second. But there's not much to one of these amps. You know, there's one circuit here. And the rest of it's made up of diodes and one IC chip. Capacitors, you know, resistors, a couple of fuses. There's really not much to these things. So anyway, so underneath, of course, you have your transformer and your wires coming out for your speaker. This is the plug, and if you look inside there, it's a special type of connection plug, and that's going to be going bye-byes. I'm pretty sure I could use just this hole. I wouldn't even have to re-drill this one. I'm going to have to put this back in the amp box and see if this is actually a free open space, because if it is, I'll just use that because that's already the perfect size anyway. But yeah, transformer comes out, and Jake's your uncle, man. So not much to one of these things, you know, not much at all. The newer amps are a lot more confusing, but it looks like our speaker wire might be starting to get a little weak. Might have to patch that up while I'm in there too. Oh well, we'll have it all apart. Take it. I gotta clean some rust off some of these nuts that hold the controls in, and finish cleaning up any static that's in these, and be able to get at that. Fix all the input jacks, make sure they're all solid. But yeah, there you go. So hey, don't go away, man. This is like a all-one video. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, in this video, we are going to fix our Adobe Edition amplifier. There's no blown circuits, which is good, but there are a lot of broken solder joints and a couple cold ones, and we got to take care of that before something does go okay? We've also got a little problem with the faceplate where it's dented inward, which caused my my bass knob, or low, to go cockeyed inward. And so we've got to try and straighten that out. Also, these mounting screw holes were over tightened, and it was a real pain in the neck to get the amp out, so we got to squish those back down flat again too. Take care of that. So the first thing we're going to try is just a piece of wood in the back, and then a steel block up a little higher, because we want to get right at that centered area. And then another block in front to protect the front of the amp, and we want to squash this pretty much as tight as we can so that it will flatten itself out. And this is the only way to do it without hammering anything, because you don't want to mess up your faceplate. If this fails, yeah, we're going to have to take the hammer to it. Okay, so go up to the top edge here. Wood out. Need a little bit more distance, so piece of wood. That back in. There. That up higher. That's almost perfectly straight. Almost. Just a slight bit more. So we gotta go onto this edge a bit. So we'll concentrate the pressure on the edge. It's there. Check this. Actually looks pretty good there. Just a little bit more right there. Okay. A little bit of a process doing this, and if you're going to try this, I hope you're feeling strong, because you've got to really crank on that clamp in order to get things to straighten out. Wasn't kidding. Do we have anything else in here for leverage? That ain't gonna work. Gotta be something. Oh, I know. ought to work. Million and one uses for a wrench. That's as far as it's going. Well, we'll just let it sit there for a few minutes, and then we'll come right back. Alright guys, time to pull this apart. See what we got. Alright. Well, that's running pretty flat. That's good. That's pretty flat too. Yep. Looks like we got her. Bazinga. All fixed. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to fix these popped up holes. These at least are real simple and easy to do. Just take your C-clamp, that quick. We just want to push them down enough that they slide back in without any real resistance problems. Good. Okay. So, next thing we got to do to this amp is we have to repair all these bad solder joints. And there's a lot of them, so I'm only going to do a few of them on camera for you guys, just so you get an idea on how to do this. It's not that difficult to do. You do need a bit of a steady hand, so if you got the shakes, don't be doing this. Get somebody who doesn't have the shakes. Because it's really critical that you don't screw up. So the solder I actually use, I get this from the source. It's actually Nextech Light Duty Rosencore solder. There's not really any flux inside this crap, so you still got to use soldering paste on fresh connections. And this stuff is designed for microelectronics, doing amps, TV repair. That's what this stuff is for. It's very thin, skimpy, wiry stuff. If you use thicker solder, you're going to have problems. If you use tin-based solder, where it's got a high tin content, that is going to go very bad for you, because that tin melts nicely once, but never again twice. Also, you're talking about an amp like this that's also over 30 years old. They used this type of solder, higher lead content and lower tin content, okay? So if you use a higher tin content solder on something like this, you're going to screw things up, and it's going to affect the sound. It's going in a bad way too. It's also not going to grip properly to the solder that's existing. So you want to make sure that you use this stuff. What I do on newer electronics that I find that don't have this, because some still do, believe it or not. A lot of our technology is still produced with this kind of solder, but there are stuff that's not, and they're using tin. And you're wondering why your crap blows up so fast after you've bought it, like within 2 years or 3 years, instead of lasting you maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years, or in this case over 30 years. And we still don't have a failure issue here. We don't really have that much of sound disruption that I can tell, only because the last Edition 20 amp I own was when I was about 16, so, or 15, 16, so I'm not going to notice the sound difference from then till now, because back then I didn't pay attention to, is there any bad solder joints? You know what I mean? But when you get bad connections, things are affected, including your input jacks, okay? And even this input jack has got some connections that are just starting to want to go. The headphone jack on this one is almost ready to fall out, which is bad. And the preamp out jack, not much better. And somebody's been inside this amp before, and they've done some repair work on the pots, either replacing them or just resoldering them. But how they managed to prang that bass control knob area of the plate and make things go cockeye, anybody's guess, man. I have no idea. But anyway, so I'm going to shut the camera off for a few minutes, let the soldering iron heat up, then we'll come back and I'll show you how to fix these solder joints up so that they're all nice and brand new again. Alright guys, it's time to repair the solder joints, and we're also going to show you how to install a new power jack. Now this little jack here is a special little plug, which is a pain in the neck because you cannot get the adapter anymore. The Peavey Edition 20 amp it's the only amp I know of by Peavey, but they may have done others, but it's the only one I know of for sure that you can get this optional kit, and then you can run this off your car battery. So you can plug it into your car, 12 volt power, and you get reduced from 12 watts to 3 watts of output, which is fine, no big deal, right? 3 watts should still be pretty loud, and we're going to find out, because once this amp is all back together, we're going to test it on the car. So I'm going to replace it with this regular guitar jack, and we're going to make up a plug that is going to go to the car's battery. So, piece of cake, you know? And anyways, so let's get on with fixing some of these connections so you know what you're doing here. Now, like I said, this headphone jack is the worst of them because the breaks are pretty easy to see. I don't know if even a magnifying glass is going to help this on camera, but they're pretty bad, okay? They're really bad. Nah, probably not going to help on camera. So anyways, you can spot broken solder joints pretty easy because they don't look solid, right? They could be really bad. They could be just a crack on one side of a joint. Could be you see what looks like a hollow spot from the stem from the circuit lead sticking through the middle. It looks kind of hollow, like it's not complete. Cold solder joints tend to look very dull in color instead of shiny, you know, and sometimes you can't get the dullness away even with fresh solder because you don't know what kind of solder they used, but at least if you can get the joint solid again, you're good. So sometimes what you need to do is actually get a solder sucker, one of these little guys, heat up the joint, suck the old solder off, and then put some fresh stuff on. And the odd time I've actually had to take some soldering paste on a Q-tip and go over that joint before repairing it because it didn't work, and then it would stick properly and everything would be fine. So anyways, take some solder, put it on the tip of your soldering soldering pen, soldering iron, okay, and you're just going to heat up that little connection area, melt that solder in there. It doesn't take a lot of extra on the tip. You can even do it this way. Anywhere where there's a soldering joint. Now you'll notice that even back in the 80s we had plastic housings for our input jacks a lot of times. And so you see these little tits here sticking up, alright, and it's around a soldering path, okay, or a circuit path. Well, you don't put solder there because that's just plastic, okay, and you'll find that along all of these. Do not stay on the circuit for too long. Some circuits, well, these ones wouldn't be so bad, but stuff like transistors, diodes, they're very heat sensitive, so you got to be pretty quick to get your repair done. You don't want to put too much heat on there for too long, because you can actually destroy the circuit that way. And same with capacitors, especially electrolytic capacitors. They really don't like having a lot of heat at them for very long. So you want to make sure that you're on the ball with that as well. Now I'm used to using a bigger iron, but sometimes I get across some circuits that are really super tiny, okay? That requires a different soldering iron for that, with a much finer tip. And they are not high wattage either, they're usually much lower wattage. And so it takes a little bit more to melt sometimes. And that's another thing you got to watch too, is you got to kind of figure it out and pick and choose. So let's take a look at what we just fixed. That's looking nice. That's perfect. So there's no chance of those going la-la anymore. Now I'm going to freshen up some of these solder joints where they went over them once before, just because I don't want to take this amp apart again, and who knows how the last person really did do stuff in this thing. It doesn't take long. Now these pots could take a little bit more heat, but you want to try not to, okay? The whole idea is to get in here nice and quick, get it done, get your solder connection looking good and solid, and then voila. And it doesn't take long at all to do these. You gotta also be very careful when you're crossing paths between different points, so we'll just, for layman's terms, call it positive and negative junctions, okay? Because you don't want to slop solder across and, oh, I didn't notice that, and then you plug in your amp and it catches fire or shit blows up and you wondered why. Well, guess what? You screwed up. So you want to be very mindful and focused when you're soldering, so that you don't screw that up. And if you do, just get a solder sucker and you'll be fine. So, judging by the way these contacts are melting for me on the pots, somebody used a lead-based solder, which was good, but it wasn't the proper type of solder. It was, well, I wouldn't call it the proper type anyways, because it takes a lot more to melt it. It shouldn't take that long to melt it. Let's go over that one again. So, you don't have to be excessive. Now you see little ones like right in here. These are the little trickier ones, and you just want to get on top real quick with those. They'll melt really fast. I am probably going to end up going through this entire board just because. And it's not going to hurt anything to do it. In fact, it'll give the amp that much more life. Because the better your connections are, you're not going to be subject to things shorting out from bad contacts, because they're all going to be good contacts. And that's our goal here, is to have really good solid contacts. It's this fast and easy, guys. It's really not difficult. Like I said, you just need a fairly steady hand, you know. And see, this is another input jack area. I'm going to take just a small look at that. You know, it actually does look really good, but I don't care. I'm going to go over it. You know, you never know. Better to be safe than sorry, you know what I mean? And input jacks are actually probably one of your more critical ones that break down sooner than anything, because you're always jamming that amp cord in and out, or wireless kit, or whatever you happen to be using. And so they break down actually the fastest. So over this one again. There we go, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to finish off this board, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to change out that wire for the power thing, and also how to find your polarity on your now new jack. Now the other thing you could do with this, get some wires, right? One for positive, one for negative, obviously, and you can drill a hole or put a nut, say, over here onto this nut that fits it right, with a little electrical lead. Okay, so something like one of these things here, you could use one of these, use that as your ground, put your ground there, and you could run your ground off of two separate wires. You know, have a ground and a live, and then just put alligator clips, and then, you know, just store them inside the amp case. Just make sure you always cover at least your positive clamp so it doesn't short out against anything, just in case. So better be safe. But we're going to do it with just an input jack system, because I want the freedom to be able to just yank it out and it's gone, you know. So it's out of my way, so I don't have to worry about wires and stuff. But anyways, we shall be back. Okay guys, so here's the emptied out Edition 20 box. Lovely, isn't it? She's pretty grungy. I had to crazy glue one of those metal tabs back in that holds the strap in. A little bit dripped down there, but you'll never see that once this is all fixed. And the back bottom plate does not come out. I don't know how they permanently fastened that in there, but I can't find screws anywhere. And it ain't moving, but that's okay. A lot of years worth of grunge in there to get out. So take you over to the speaker here. Grab this puppy. So there's our speaker. So not a lot of cleanup, just a little bit of polishing on the aluminum. We'll be fine, and we'll see how we're going to clean this cloth up. I have a couple ideas in mind. And there's our big 8-inch ugly speaker. It's 4 ohms. I might actually switch the speaker out. I've got a 4 ohm speaker here that I'm thinking about throwing in and see if maybe it improves the sound a bit. You never know, right? It's worth a shot. But anyway, so that's that. So we shall continue on our journey of restoration. The metal pieces are, oh, they're grungy. And there was at one time a bit of water damage too on the bottom. Where is it? Right in there. That's a spot there. Another spot in there. Just got to fix all that up and get this thing all looking brand spanking shiny new again. So we shall continue on. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So our Edition 20 amp is all cleaned up, and well, it's restored as close as it's gonna get to being almost new again. But hey, far sight better than what it was. But anyway, so I'm gonna spin the amp around here so you can see what's happening. So this is the 1/4 inch guitar jack that feeds the wire all the way over to the car over there. And my wife's gonna spin that around so you can see. And so we're just running straight 12 volts off the car battery, and you can see the amp here. Power cord is not plugged in. So let's see what 3 watts of PV power is kind of like. Right now everything's right in the middle. Wow, does that ever echo out here, man? Holy jeez. Well, you know what they say about power. You gotta go full. My neighbors are still gonna be pissed. know, guys, for 3 watts of PV power, I wouldn't suggest cranking the amp full blast because it does kind of go a little bit. Of course, it'd probably be better if the car was running, but I'm going right off the battery without the car running because it is 12 to 18 volts, so you get a little bit more oomph out of it if your car was running. But I mean, in my world, if you're going to go battery power, you just straight battery, right? You know, feed it to 12 volts at once and away you go. You don't need your car running for that, but you can. So I'd say it's a win-win. Now, when you use the 12-volt battery power system, you have no control over the on and off switch. Because it's a direct feed straight to the board, you bypass the power switch altogether. Power switch is only active for your 120 volts, so be aware of that before you hook the power up, and make sure your controls are turned down, or you might just scare the crap out of yourself. Anyway, so that's our amp. So my wife's going to take the camera off the tripod now, and she's going to give you a nice little close-up all the way around that amp so you can see how it looks now, because you guys saw the before and how grungy and gross it was. And so she's going to give you an up-close of what we've been able to accomplish. And meanwhile, I got to disconnect this battery. And there's our jack plug, by the way. That's what plugs into there now instead of the PV kit that is not available. And you can switch it out in, like, it'd probably take you about a half an hour in and out, because you got to pull the amp right out of the thing and pull that wire out, put a new wire in, and just a guitar jack. And you don't need any real heavy-duty cable. This is just some heavy gauge speaker wire that I'm using, so that works. I think she came pretty clean. I would give that about, I'd give it about 90%. I mean, you know, and she is an old amp. That's 1984 technology for you. That's some pretty old stuff. But she come out pretty clean, I'll tell you. And all I did with the cabinet is take a nail brush, you know, like soft bristled, nylon bristled nail brush, a little bit of soap, and scrape the crap out of everything, and wiped her down after, and she come out pretty darn clean. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this little restoration video. I had a lot of fun doing this. Good thing I got another project waiting for me in my shop, otherwise I'd be bored and probably get into trouble doing something else. But, yeah, this old amp. Now, this is the one that I got from the pawn shop, from my buddy there, so... But, yeah, I like it, and I like this 12-volt thing. That's cool. So I am definitely going to do the same modification to my other Edition 20 amp, is put a jack in and build a cable separate for it, you know, and then I'll have 2 of them that I can run either 120 volt or 12 volts. So if the power goes out, I can still play my electric guitars. Yay! I just gotta, you know, run a line off the battery, that's all, no big deal. Or a 3-cell LiPo battery from an RC will work perfect as well. No problem. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and hey, catch you on the next video.